His eyes burned with arrogance and rage, testing his untouchable power in front of everyone. But Naima was no ordinary teacher. She was a former Marine. In that frozen moment, one choice loomed. Stay silent and let the system bury the truth again, or risk everything, her safety, her career, her life, to expose the darkness hiding behind wealth and influence. If this moment felt intense, prepare yourself, because what comes next is darker, more dangerous, and far more powerful than anything you've seen so far. Subscribe to Black Battles and hit the bell icon so you never miss our latest powerful stories. Hawthorne Ridge High stood proudly on the edge of town, its brick walls washed in the late autumn sun. To outsiders, it looked like the picture of order and achievement, gleaming trophies in glass cases, manicured lawns, banners celebrating academic excellence. But beneath that polished image lay whispers of favoritism, corruption, and fear, secrets most were too afraid to speak aloud. Naima Carter had noticed it the day she arrived. A former Marine turned English teacher, she carried herself with the calm discipline of someone who had seen battlefields far worse than rowdy teenagers. She wasn't easily shaken, but she also wasn't naive. It didn't take her long to see how power worked here. Some students were protected no matter what they did, and no one embodied that truth more than Preston Vale. Preston wasn't just another spoiled kid. He was the son of Eloise Vale, a wealthy political figure with deep ties to the school board. Teachers looked the other way when he bullied classmates. Principals excused his arrogance. His smirk alone was enough to silence those who thought about standing up to him. For years, Preston had lived like rules were suggestions meant for other people. Naima, however, wasn't wired to ignore injustice. She had watched him mock students in her class, tear down essays, and whisper cruel words that left some kids fighting back tears. Marisol Vega, a brilliant but quiet student, had been his latest target. Tariq Jones, outspoken and defiant, had nearly come to blows with him a week earlier. Naima had stepped in both times, warning Preston that her classroom would never be his playground. It was a warning he did not take well. On a Tuesday afternoon, the tension finally snapped. The day had been ordinary, lockers slamming, students hurrying between periods, the smell of cafeteria pizza lingering in the halls. But inside room 204, storm clouds gathered. Naima collected essays at her desk while Preston lounged in the back, tossing a pen into the air with deliberate insolence. His mocking laugh carried across the room as Marisol shrank into her seat. "Preston," Naima said firmly, "that's enough. Put the pen away and focus." He smirked, leaned back, and muttered loudly, "You don't tell me what to do." "Do you even know who my family is?" The class went silent. Students exchanged nervous glances, sensing the air grow heavier. Naima's voice didn't waver. "In this room, Preston, your last name doesn't matter." "Respect does." Something inside him snapped at those words. He shot up from his chair, his face twisted in anger. Before anyone could react, he crossed the room and grabbed Naima by the throat. The scrape of her chair echoed as it slid against the tile floor. Gasps filled the classroom. Marisol screamed. For a moment, time froze, but Naima's instincts took over. Years of military training surged back. Her body moved before fear could root her in place. With a swift motion, she twisted free of his grip and pushed him back, her breath ragged, but her eyes blazing with fury. The room erupted in chaos. Some students rushed toward the door, and others pulled out phones, capturing shaky videos. Preston's smug arrogance faltered, replaced by shock at being resisted. Naima stood her ground, her voice sharp and unyielding. "This ends now." What no one in that room knew was that this single moment, Preston Vale finally crossing the line, would unravel an entire system of power, corruption, and silence that had ruled Hawthorne Ridge for years. The incident in room 204 spread through Hawthorne Ridge High like wildfire. By the end of the day, whispers traveled faster than texts. Some swore they had seen Preston choke Carter with their own eyes. Others claimed the teacher overreacted, twisting an innocent confrontation. Rumors blended with half-truths until no one knew what was real, except those inside the classroom. whose memories of Marisol's scream and Naima's gasping breaths were burned into their minds. Naima, shaken but steady, filed her report immediately. Her hands trembled slightly as she typed the details for the administration, but her words were clear. Preston Vale had assaulted her in front of witnesses. She expected resistance, but what followed tested her resolve in ways she hadn't imagined. Principal Mercer's office was dim, blinds drawn against the fading sun. He sat stiffly behind his desk, his expression unreadable as Naima repeated the events. When she finished, his pause was long, deliberate. "Miss Carter," he said finally, his voice low, "I understand you're upset, but Preston, well, you know his family's role here. Are you certain you want to proceed with this? Accusations like this could complicate your career." Naima's jaw tightened. "Principal Mercer, this wasn't an accusation. It was an assault. My career isn't what's at risk here. My students' safety is." His eyes flickered, but he leaned back and sighed as though burdened with an inconvenience rather than a crime. "Let's not be hasty. Maybe we can resolve this quietly. Preston can't apologize. We don't need a scandal." The words tasted like poison. Resolve hardened in Naima's chest. She refused to be another teacher silenced by fear of the Vale name. Meanwhile, students carried the truth among themselves. Marisol and Tariq met in the library, voices low as they pieced together what they had seen. Tariq's fists clenched with frustration. "They'll cover for him, just like always. If we don't do something, she'll be on her own." Dr. Hattie Dubose, the librarian, overheard enough to understand. She closed her book gently, her wise eyes landing on the two students. "Courage has a price," she said softly, "but silence has a heavier one. If you believe in her, stand with her." And so, a quiet alliance began forming, students determined to gather proof, allies watching from the shadows, and one teacher unwilling to bend to corruption. But the walls around Preston were thick. That night, Naima returned home to find her porch light smashed, shards of glass glittering like warning signs in the dark. A folded note rested against her door. "Stop this before it gets worse." Her pulse quickened as she scanned the quiet street, shadows stretching under the flickering street lamp. Fear whispered at the edge of her thoughts, but so did something stronger, resolve. She tucked the note away and locked her door, her mind already turning. Naima Carter had faced threats before, in deserts half a world away. She knew intimidation when she saw it, and she knew what it meant. She was getting close to something they desperately wanted to keep hidden. This was no longer about a single act of violence. It was about a system determined to silence her, and her decision to fight back. By morning, the Vale family machine was already in motion. Preston arrived at school in a black SUV, flanked by two lawyers in sharp suits who walked him through the halls like a celebrity shielded from paparazzi. His smirk had returned, though a flicker of unease hid beneath it. Students watched in uneasy silence. Some had seen the attack with their own eyes, but already stories were shifting. Videos from phones were mysteriously deleted. Posts online vanished within hours. It was as though the incident had been swallowed whole by some invisible force. That force had a name, Eloise Vale. Eloise was more than a wealthy donor. She was a polished politician, her face on campaign posters promising integrity, strength, community. Behind closed doors, though, her influence was ruthless. When Principal Mercer received a call from her that morning, his shoulders slumped as though a weight had been strapped to his back. Whatever happened next, he would protect the Vale name, even if it meant betraying his own teachers. Naima Carter knew Eloise's kind. She had seen leaders who spoke of honor while hiding blood on their hands. Still, nothing prepared her for the sheer audacity of their tactics. That afternoon, Mercer summoned her again. His tone was clipped, rehearsed. "We've reviewed the situation," he said, avoiding her eyes. "There's insufficient evidence. Several students claim your account is exaggerated. Unless you wish to withdraw your statement, this could escalate into a very unpleasant matter." Naima's voice cut through his careful wording. "You mean Eloise Vale has ordered you to bury this, and you're willing to let a teacher be assaulted in her classroom because of her last name?" His silence confirmed it. By evening, the smear campaign began. Fake social media accounts spread rumors that Naima had lost control in class, that she had a history of aggressive behavior, or that she had threatened Preston first. Hashtags questioning her professionalism trended among local feeds. Parents whispered outside the school gates, unsure whom to believe. Then came the intimidation. A brick crashed through Naima's living room window, scattering glass across the floor. She stood frozen for a moment, heart pounding as cold air rushed through the jagged hole. Taped to the brick was a single photo, her Marine portrait, ripped in half. She called the police, but the officer who arrived only shrugged. "Could be kids messing around," he said, jotting down half-hearted notes. His eyes told her the truth. He wouldn't touch anything linked to the veils. But Naima wasn't completely alone. Marisol slipped her a flash drive the next day, her hands shaking. "Two saved a copy before my phone got wiped," she whispered. "Don't tell anyone I gave it to you." On the drive, shaky footage showed exactly what had happened in room 204. Preston lunging, his hand at Naima's throat, students screaming. Proof. But how long could they keep it safe before the veil's reach found even this? Naima closed her fist around the flash drive, her jaw set. Eloise Vale had drawn her battle lines. This wasn't just about Preston anymore. It was about truth versus power, justice versus corruption, and Naima had no intention of backing down. For days, the tension at Hawthorne Ridge High simmered like a storm just waiting to break. Preston strutted through the halls as if nothing had happened, his entourage of wealthy friends laughing too loudly at his jokes, as though trying to erase the memory of what everyone had seen. But behind their forced confidence, whispers refused to die. Students passed notes, exchanged glances, and shared hushed conversations about the truth. The silence the veils tried to buy was beginning to fracture. Naima Carter kept her composure, but she knew she couldn't stand alone for long. Her Marine instincts told her to anticipate the enemy's next move, but this battlefield was unlike any she had faced before. The war here was fought with money, influence, and fear. One evening, she found herself sitting in the library long after most students had gone home. Dr. Hattie Dubose approached her, carrying 2 mugs of tea, her voice low but steady. "You remind me of a soldier holding a line no one else dares to defend," she said, setting a mug in front of Naima. "But even soldiers need reinforcements." Naima's tired smile gave her away. "The problem is, reinforcements here get silenced before they can act." Dr. Dubose leaned closer. "Then we make noise so loud it can't be ignored, and reinforcements were coming." Janelle Brooks, a local lawyer with a reputation for challenging powerful families, reached out after hearing about the attack. She had tangled with the Veils before and carried the scars of legal battles lost against their wealth. Still, she was unafraid. "If you want justice," she told Naima, "you'll need a shield and a sword." "I can be both." Even more unexpected was the return of Sergeant Red Whitaker, Naima's former comrade from the Marines. He had settled in a nearby town after deployment, working as a security consultant. When he heard about her fight, he drove straight to her doorstep. "You didn't leave me behind overseas," he said gruffly, gripping her shoulder. "I'm not about to leave you now." Meanwhile, Tariq Jones and Marisol Vega quietly gathered information from classmates too afraid to speak publicly. Marisol, nervous but determined, created a hidden online archive where students uploaded anonymous testimonies of Preston's bullying. Tariq, bold as ever, promised to protect anyone who came forward. Slowly, a picture emerged. Years of assaults, harassment, and cover-ups, all buried under the veil's shadow. But the real crack came from within. A janitor slipped Naima an envelope one morning, his hands trembling. Inside were photocopies of disciplinary records, documents that showed Preston had been reported multiple times for violent incidents. Each report had been stamped with "resolved" in Principal Mercer's handwriting, though no punishments had ever been carried out. Naima studied the papers late into the night, her heart pounding. This wasn't just a single assault. It was a pattern of abuse, covered up by those sworn to protect students. And now, finally, there was proof. Still, every step forward brought new danger. Anonymous calls buzzed through her phone at midnight, breathing heavy before hanging up. A car with tinted windows lingered outside her house longer than coincidence allowed. The Vales were tightening their grip, but with each ally gained, each hidden truth uncovered, their armor began to crack, and Naima was ready to drive the blade deeper. The courthouse steps buzzed with tension the morning Naima Carter walked inside, flanked by Janelle Brooks and Sergeant Red Whitaker. Reporters crowded near the entrance, microphones thrust forward, shouting questions about the incident at Hawthorne Ridge High. Naima kept her gaze steady, her spine straight, refusing to let them see even a flicker of doubt. She wasn't just walking into a courtroom, she was walking into enemy territory. Inside, the air was heavy with anticipation. Preston sat at the defense table in a tailored suit, his posture arrogant, his smirk faint but unmistakable. Eloise Vale sat beside him, her polished appearance betraying nothing of the fury that burned beneath. Her eyes met Naima's across the room, cold and calculating, as though daring her to continue this fight. The proceedings began with Eloise's attorneys painting a picture of Preston as the victim. They claimed Naima had provoked him, that she was an unstable teacher with a history of disciplinary problems. Documents were waved in the air, fabricated reports suggesting she had once threatened students. The lie spilt smoothly, crafted by professionals who had buried 100 scandals before. But Janelle Brooks was ready. She rose with quiet fire, her voice sharp as she tore apart their claims. "Your Honor, the defendant is presenting fabricated records. We have proof of tampering within the school's files." She handed the judge a folder, the disciplinary reports obtained from the janitor. Each one showed the truth. Complaints filed against Preston, everyone dismissed by Principal Mercer without action. The courtroom murmured. Preston shifted uneasily in his chair, then came the testimonies. Marisol Vega's voice shook as she recounted what she saw in room 204, but her courage never faltered. Tariq Jones followed, his words cutting through the silence like a blade. "I saw him grab her. He's done it before to other students. We were too scared to say anything. Not anymore." One by one, more students stepped forward, some with trembling voices, others with quiet resolve. Their stories formed a damning chorus of truth that the Vales could no longer silence. Still, Eloise fought back. Midway through the hearing, Janelle revealed the flash drive Marisol had saved. The judge allowed the video to play. On the screen, grainy footage captured Preston lunging across the classroom, his hand at Naima's throat. Gasps filled the courtroom. Preston's smirk dissolved. Eloise's face went pale, her mask of control cracking. The defense scrambled, objecting, claiming the video was doctored. But Janelle was relentless. "The Vales have a history of tampering with evidence. This time they failed. By the end of the day, the judge's gavel struck with authority. This case will proceed to trial, and all claims of fabricated evidence will be investigated further." As the room emptied, Eloise brushed past Naima, her voice a venomous whisper. "You don't know who you're dealing with. This fight will destroy you." Naima didn't flinch. "I've fought worse enemies than you," she replied quietly, "and I've never lost." For the first time, Eloise Vale had no answer. The battle had only begun, but the cracks in their empire were widening. The trial drew crowds larger than anyone expected. Journalists lined the steps of the courthouse. Community members filled every bench inside, and outside the building, protesters carried signs demanding justice. "Protect teachers, protect students," one banner read. Hawthorne Ridge was no longer whispering, it was shouting. Naima Carter sat tall at the plaintiff's table, her allies beside her. Marisol and Tariq sat in the gallery, their young faces resolute despite the fear in their eyes. Dr. Dubose folded her hands in her lap, silent but unwavering, while Red Whitaker stood like a sentry near the back, as if daring anyone to try intimidation. The defense opened with polished arrogance. Eloise Vale's attorneys repeated the same refrain: unreliable witnesses, doctored evidence, a vendetta against the Vale family. Preston kept his eyes lowered, his usual smirk replaced with a tight, nervous jaw. He looked less like the untouchable heir and more like what he truly was, a boy caught in the shadow of his family's power. Then Janelle Brooks stood. Her presence commanded the room, her voice rising with conviction. She laid out a timeline of cover-ups, records Mercer had altered, NDAs signed by parents whose children had been bullied, payments routed through shell charities linked to the Vales. One by one, the puzzle pieces clicked into place. The most damning blow came from a surprise witness. A former staff member, once silent out of fear, took the stand. His voice trembled, but his words carried weight. I was ordered to delete footage, to shred reports. Every time Preston was caught, Principal Mercer told me, "It's handled." But it never was. The defense erupted with objections, but the damage was done. The jury watched, eyes wide, as the facade of the Vale family crumbled. Then the final card was played. Janelle produced an email recovered from the school servers. A direct message from Eloise Vale to Principal Mercer. "Make this disappear." "She cannot win." "Do what you must," the courtroom gasped. Eloise's composure cracked for the first time. She shifted in her seat, her perfectly rehearsed mask slipping into raw fury. The judge's gavel hammered. "Order!" he barked. But the atmosphere had already shifted. Everyone in the room knew what they were seeing. The truth unveiled. In her closing statement, Janelle's voice softened. She gestured toward Naima. "This is not just about one teacher. It's about a system that allowed power and money to silence victims for years. If the law means anything, it must mean that no one, not even the Vales, stands above it." Silence followed, heavy and electric. When the jury finally filed back into the room, time seemed suspended. The foreperson's voice was steady. "We find Preston Vale guilty of assault. We also recommend further investigation into administrative misconduct." Naima exhaled, her fists unclenching beneath the table. Preston's shoulders slumped as the weight of consequence for once fell on him. Eloise Vale stared ahead, her campaign dreams shattered, her empire collapsing in plain view. The battle was over, but the war for change at Hawthorne Ridge was only beginning. The verdict had rippled through Hawthorne Ridge like a shockwave. Preston Vale was found guilty of assault, and an official investigation into the school's administration was underway. For the first time, the Vale family's grip on the town was slipping. Eloise's mayoral campaign collapsed overnight, her posters quietly removed from street corners. Her name whispered now not with admiration, but with suspicion. But for Naima Carter, the battle was never about politics or personal victories. It was about truth. In the weeks that followed, she returned to her classroom, not as a victim, but as a survivor who had refused to be silenced. Her students greeted her with cautious smiles that soon grew into warmth. Even those who once believed Preston untouchable now saw that courage could change things. The school board, under mounting pressure from the community, implemented new policies, independent oversight of misconduct cases, transparency in disciplinary actions, and protections for teachers and students who dared to speak up. Principal Mercer resigned quietly, his office cleared out before sunrise one morning, leaving behind only questions of how deep his complicity had gone. Naima's allies remained close. Dr. Dubose continued guiding students with wisdom and gentle firmness. Marisol Vega found her voice, joining the school's debate team and speaking about integrity with newfound strength. Tariq Jones, once dismissed as trouble, became a leader among his peers, showing others that resistance could be channeled into change. And Red Whitaker still checked in often, a steady reminder that she had a family beyond blood. Even Preston's fate carried a note of justice laced with hope. Instead of a long prison sentence, the court ordered him to counseling and extensive community service. By a twist of irony, part of his service was assisting at Naima's after-school self-defense program, a place where students learned not just how to protect themselves, but how to stand tall in the face of intimidation. For Preston, it was not an escape from punishment, but a daily reminder of the strength he once underestimated. On a crisp spring evening, Naima stood outside the school gym where her self-defense class had just ended. The sky blazed with the colors of sunset, the voices of laughing students carrying into the night. Red leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, watching with quiet pride. "You've built something here," he said. Naima smiled, her eyes reflecting both weariness and peace. Not me, them, they just needed to see that silence isn't the only choice. The sound of footsteps echoed as Marisol and Tariq joined her, their faces lit with determination. Behind them, more students followed, no longer shadows but voices ready to be heard. For the first time in years, Hawthorne Ridge felt lighter. Not perfect, not free of struggle, but different. Stronger. Naima looked back at the school, its brick walls glowing in the last light of day. "This is only the beginning," she whispered, and with those words, the story of fear and silence finally gave way to a new chapter, one built on courage, truth, and the unshakable belief that even the strongest walls of corruption can fall.